This is Today as It Happened. Good Tuesday evening. I'm Holly Furfer. I'm here to guide you through our timeline of the day's most important news. From redistricting battles across the country to a health update from music legend Dolly Parton. But first, we started the morning with a look at the volatile situation in the Strait of Hormuz and how it's affecting the global economy. Gas prices jumped overnight to nearly $4.50 a gallon nationwide as Middle East tensions spiked. That's up more than 30 cents in just 1 week. California drivers paying the most at over $6 a gallon, while Oklahoma has the cheapest prices at nearly $4. And of course, those prices are a result of what's happening in Iran. The U.S. military fired on Iranian forces and sank 6 small boats as it moved to reopen the Strait of Hormuz on Monday. The United Arab Emirates came under attack from Iran for the first time since a fragile ceasefire began in April. Iranian missiles and drones targeted UAE oil facilities, wounding 3 people and sparking a fire. The U.S. saying it has successfully opened a passage through the critical waterway that's been effectively closed by Iran. Scripps News Chief Washington correspondent Joe St. George joins us now live from Capitol Hill. And Joe, I mean, there are so many mixed messages coming out of Washington and the Middle East. We're getting positive news from the Pentagon, but a far different take from Iranian leaders. What is the latest?
Well, you have 2 countries attempting to assert control over the Strait of Hormuz. Iran says they're in charge. The U.S. is saying, look, Project Freedom is showing that the U.S. military is capable of moving some vessels, helping to move some vessels out of that restricted waterway. One of the more noteworthy developments on another busy Tuesday morning, Holly, is that the Pentagon says the ceasefire is holding, and that's an important announcement because there's been a lot of firing for a ceasefire, a lot of action for a ceasefire in the last 24 hours. We've seen the United Arab Emirates in the last 24 hours. Phones buzz, missile siren alerts be sounded for the first time in a month. We saw the U.S. take out a number of small Iranian boats yesterday. Iran threatened claims to have fired upon vessels in the direction of commercial vessels in the region, as well as the U.S. military. They were not successful in those efforts. But again, that's a lot of action for a ceasefire. You choose the adjective that you like: precarious, fragile. It is clearly a ceasefire that is being tested for the moment, holding, but where will this story take us throughout the day? We're going to get a briefing at 3 p.m. Eastern time from Secretary of State Marco Rubio. It's weird to say filling in for the White House press secretary, but we're expecting to see a number of cabinet secretaries filling in for Caroline Leavitt as she begins her maternity leave. It'll be an opportunity for reporters here in Washington to ask the secretary about the diplomatic efforts, the pursuit of that deal to perhaps truly ease tensions in the Middle East. But first, this morning it was Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth who said this about the current operation in the Middle East. Oh, sorry about that. Secretary Hegseth saw not currently available. We'll work on turning that around for you. But all of this unfolding as the price of gasoline increases for so many Americans. It is a burden in many corners of the country. You shared it at the top of the hour, Holly, the price of gasoline in California, the national average around $4.50 a gallon as of this morning. Remember what the record is. It's a little more than $5 a gallon set in 2022. We're also tracking diesel prices. And this is a big deal in the agriculture community, truck drivers. It's what powers so many of our goods being around the country. New records were set in a number of states, like Wisconsin overnight, when it comes to diesel and the impact that will have on inflation down the line. We mentioned Secretary Hegseth earlier this morning, who said this about the current state of Project Freedom in the Middle East.
We're not looking for a fight, but Iran also cannot be allowed to block innocent countries and their goods from an international waterway. Iran is the clear aggressor, harassing civilian vessels, threatening mariners from every nation indiscriminately, and weaponizing a critical choke point for its own financial benefit, or at least trying to.
Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth earlier this morning at the Pentagon. As far as President Trump goes, we're expecting to see him later today as well. On Monday at the White House, he said this, a verbal assault on the Iranian military, and he said this about the American economy. Take a listen.
Our country's booming now, despite the fact that we're in I call it a mini war, because that's all they are. They don't have a Navy anymore. Think of it. They had 159 ships. How many do they have left, Kelly? Out of 159, take a guess. She's very smart, 0.
Iran's foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, writing on social media about everything that we've seen play out in the Strait of Hormuz in the last 24 hours. Quote, events in Hormuz make clear that there's no military solution to a political crisis. As talks are making progress with Pakistan's gracious effort, the U.S. should be wary of being dragged back into quagmire by ill-wishers. So should the UAE. Project Freedom is Project deadlock. So clearly, this is a tested ceasefire that is still holding, with lots of questions as to where this goes next, Holly.
And to follow this up, this morning at the Pentagon briefing, the Secretary of Defense said that this Project Freedom is a temporary mission from the U.S. He expects that other countries would step up who are really dependent on getting those ships in and out of the Strait of Hormuz. Do we know if there have been any conversations between the U.S. and other countries? I'm thinking European countries who are far more dependent on the oil coming out of the Middle East to help support Project Freedom to get these ships through the Strait.
Well, it's not just Europe. Asia, remember, is heavily reliant on what typically flows out of the Strait of Hormuz. And this morning, South Korea has at least released a statement acknowledging that they're at least considering the possibility of some sort of assistance. So as the U.S. attempts to assert control over the Strait, obviously this has the attention of other countries who are struggling. I mean, I know it's painful to see $4.99 a gallon in Cleveland, Ohio, or Detroit, Michigan this morning. But remember, no one's talking about fuel shortages in the U.S. They're actively talking about that in Europe, the cancellation of flights in the coming weeks. What's coming out of the Middle East is much more impactful for Asia, much more impactful for Europe. And of course, countries are watching all of this unfold. There has been a hesitancy, though, for countries to readily join in this U.S. requests in the Middle East. Many European leaders believing the U.S. began this. They need to figure this out on their own. There's a concern about being dragged into something akin to Iraq. We've seen that play out for weeks and weeks. But we know of some countries like South Korea who are at least looking at the possibility on this Tuesday.
And Joe, other news happening in the world, especially here in the U.S., so I want to shift gears to that. Voters have some big decisions to make today in 2 states that are pretty important. So what are we looking for? What's happening today here when it comes to primaries?
Well, it's primary day in Ohio, and it's primary day in Indiana. And it's an opportunity to really get a temperature check on President Trump, his political influence, his political power, his mainstay in Republican politics. We're expecting a number of rubber stamping, make it official who the Democrat-Republican nominees will be for governor in Ohio, for instance, for Senate in Ohio. It's difficult for Democrats to win back the Senate in November without flipping Ohio. The expectation is that former Senator Sherrod Brown will make it official today and be the Democratic nominee. A number of House races as well that folks are watching, impacted by redistricting in Ohio. Indiana is an interesting one. It's actually, I think the more interesting one is happening in the state legislature races in the state of Indiana. Remember what President Trump wanted to do. He wanted Indiana to redistrict, like Florida, like Texas, like other states. And a number of Indiana state senators said, no, we're uncomfortable with this. Well, President Trump's political operation is primarying those. Can the president's political machine take out those lawmakers who refuse to do what the president wanted? It's one of the storylines we're tracking, again, on this primary day in Ohio, in Indiana. You can look at all the polls you want, but you actually get some results today. What's the appetite for MAGA, for President Trump picks like Vivek Ramaswamy, who's running for governor in Ohio? How much support, well, he's expected to win today, but how much support will he get? Again, we'll just be able to read the tea leaves a bit better. And real quickly on the political story of the moment, one of them at least, it's redistricting, Holly. And today we have another state entering the fray, Tennessee, a special session that could potentially wipe out a Democratic seat in the Memphis area. And this is a direct response to the landmark Supreme Court decision from last week that at least changed the interpretation that many lawmakers have of the Voting Rights Act. President Trump believes that if state legislatures, particularly in the South, redistrict to the degree that he thinks they can, Republicans could net 20 seats in November. So the redistricting story isn't going away, and it's on full display in Tennessee on this Tuesday.
All right, Scripps News Chief Washington correspondent Joe St. George for us. Thank you, Joe. This is Today as It Happened. Stay with us. All right, why don't we take a quick look at some of the other major headlines from today. A federal judge is blasting the treatment of accused gunman Cole Thomas Allen, who was charged with opening fire inside the hotel that hosted the White House Correspondents' Dinner last month. The judge said Allen's jail treatment is worse than January 6 Capitol protesters received. Allen has been on suicide watch with full restraints and restricted housing. The judge apologized to Allen in court and ordered jail officials to improve his conditions and provide him with a requested Bible. Late yesterday afternoon, Secret Service agents shot an armed man near the White House after he allegedly opened fire on them. Plainclothes officers spotted the suspect near the Washington Monument and saw the outline of a gun. When they approached him, he ran and started shooting. Both the suspect and an innocent bystander were hit. The bystander is expected to recover. A deadly explosion at a fireworks plant in central China has killed at least 26 people and injured 61 others. The blast happened Monday afternoon at a factory in Hunan province, a major fireworks manufacturing hub. Rescue teams faced dangerous conditions from stored gunpowder and continuous smaller explosions. Chinese President Xi Jinping is calling for an all-out search effort and a swift investigation. Authorities have ordered all fireworks manufacturers in the area to halt production and have detained the company's manager. A cruise ship with nearly 150 people remains stranded off Cape Verde after 3 passengers died from a suspected hantavirus outbreak. The Dutch vessel was on a polar cruise from Argentina to Antarctica when the rare rodent-borne illness struck. Cape Verde authorities will not allow the ship to dock due to public health concerns. 2 crew members with respiratory symptoms need urgent medical care, and plans are underway for medical evacuations. Another infected passenger previously evacuated to South Africa and remains in critical condition. The World Health Organization is investigating how this outbreak began. Dolly Parton has canceled her Las Vegas residency due to ongoing health concerns. The country music legend says her immune and digestive systems are, quote, out of whack, and medical treatments are making her too dizzy to perform. The cancellation affects 6 concert dates that were already postponed from last December. Parton has not revealed the exact nature of her health issues, but she did mention suffering from kidney stones last year. The singer insists she is healing and seemed to promise future performances by saying, "See you soon." We'll be back in just a moment as we continue tracking today's top news.
You're watching Scripps News.
Welcome back to Today as It Happened. Let's return to our briefing of today's top stories. All right, we want to take you now to Washington, to the Oval Office, where President Trump is talking to reporters. RFK Jr., the HHS Secretary, is also on hand, so let's listen in.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who's done an incredible job. Scott Turner, that everybody knows, and a legend, Linda McMahon, head of education in our country, and she's doing a fantastic job. They all are. We're also pleased to be joined by respected sports leaders and members of the President's Council on Sports, Fitness, and Nutrition. We really have some incredible people. It's like a who's who. Bryson, how many do we have on the council total?
Oh, it's got to be upwards of 30, actually.
Yeah, lots, and all top.
Yes, sir.
If they weren't really good, we don't allow them. You're going to be really good. Like Gary Player, as an example, he won 168 tournaments over a very average career. You know, think of it. He won 168 tournaments, 18 majors, 9 senior. He has more championships than anybody, national championships than anybody. And I played with him. He's very proud of it, actually. He played with him on his 90th birthday. He very easily, on a tough course, from 6,800 yards, he very easily shot a 70. And it was the easiest 70. And normally, if you shoot a 70 and you're 90, you'd run around so excited. Gary's like, all right, let's have a little lunch. He was the most unexcited human being I've ever seen. Because he's been doing it all his life. He's been winning the top 3 in history, in my opinion. I don't think it's my opinion. Just based on the record, Gary is top 3. Jack and Tiger and Gary, greatest golfers. So thanks for being here. And as you know, we have the U.S. Open champion, and he won 2 U.S. Opens, but that last one was unbelievable. He hit I think Gary's one of the greatest shots ever hit to win a U.S. Open, certainly. One of the top, they say one of the top 3. I don't know what the other 2 are. But he hit an unbelievable sand shot, sank a 4.5-foot putt, and he won the U.S. Open, and he's been a great golfer from the day he was born, if you believe in genetics, because I do. But he won, he won the U.S. Amateur years ago, and he won it quite easily. But he's a great person and a great friend of mine, Bryson DeChambeau. And thank you, Bryson. And you're very much in charge of this whole operation of the sports. He's so much into physical fitness. All you have to do is take a look at him. And you say, why is he even doing this? Because I think if you didn't work out at all, you'd still look almost like you do right now. But you are doing great. And everybody respects Bryson. He's the longest hitter in golf. And he's straight. And frankly, maybe the best part of his game, Gary, is he's a great putter.
Absolutely.
You played with him, right?
And an asset to the game.
And he's a great asset, and he's a great person. And we have, along with the University of Florida's basketball coach, Todd Golden. Todd, where's Todd?
Right here.
Todd, hi, Todd.
Great to see you, brother.
And what a job, by the way, what a job you've done. I see that. I'm a little busy to watch the games, but I always see your team is right up there.
Yeah.
You're doing a fantastic job as a young guy. An American hockey hero, T.J. Oshie, who's one of the best hockey players in the world. T.J.,
It's
good to be.
Thanks for having me.
How's your golf game? The hockey players, Bryson was saying, the hockey players seem to be the best of the athletes, seem to be the best golfers. You know?
It's the greatest game.
Yeah, that's great.
Fun to play.
And he's a good golfer. He's a 3 handicap, maybe better, right? That's very good.
Gotta work on the
But
putt.
stick.
Right, Gary?
Right.
Yeah.
But stick to hockey.
Yeah.
Right? As a 3, he has to stick to hockey. That's great. What a career you've had, too, at a young age. And professional baseball pitcher, Noah Syndergaard, sometimes referred to as Thor. And he looks like Thor to me. That's where is he? It's very hard to make. They look great. That is a man, I wouldn't want to get into a fight with him, I can tell you. That would not be a good situation. Yeah. This year we celebrate 250th anniversary of our country. And it's our nation's founding. It's a big deal. In addition, we have the World Cup, and which is just now started. And we have the Olympics. I got them both, and I was very proud of myself. I tried to say I got the 250th also, but that didn't work out too well. But I did get both the World Cup and I got the Olympics. And I was very proud of that, but I was very sad, actually, because I got them in my first term, and I said, oh, wow, I'm not going to be able to go as president because they were in 6 years. So I wouldn't be president. I thought I'd easily win the election, which, by the way, I did. And unfortunately, bad things happened. It was a rigged election, and I said, well, I'll do it again. I had the ultimate poll. I did so well. And I had the ultimate poll, and we won in a landslide. We won every single swing state. We won the popular vote. We won everything you can win. We won 87% of the counties in the United States. And I ended up with the Olympics, and I ended up with the World Cup. And very importantly, maybe the most important, is we have the 250th anniversary. And on June 14th, we're going to have the UFC, and the biggest fight they've ever done by far. It's the hardest ticket I've ever been involved with. And they're building a 5,000-seat stadium right by the front door of the White House. And then they're going to have anywhere from 75 to 100,000 people on the park right past the White House with 8 tremendous screens. And then we have Roger Penske. So that's Dana White's dream, what that is. It's going to be amazing. And then we have Roger Penske is going to have a big championship Indy around the Capitol. And the Indy racers, and he's been trying to get it here for 25 years. And he said, I came to Washington exactly 121 times, and I was never able to get it. I came once to see you, and we had it done in a half an hour. And he's fantastic. He's won 20 Indianapolis 500s. Can you believe that? Other, countries, and I say it all the time, I gave him the Presidential Medal of Freedom, like I gave to Gary, too.
More of today's top stories just ahead, right here on Today As It Happened. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Today As It Happened. This is Scripps News end-of-day snapshot of our biggest stories, some you may have missed. So let's pick up right where we left off. It's National Small Business Week 2026, honoring the vital contributions of American entrepreneurs. But owning your own business is not without challenges. The rising cost of living and gas prices can have a big impact. Gabe Hagan is live with us now from Mesa, Arizona. He's the founder of the Brick Road Community Corporation. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So, Gabe, tell us about your company, Brick Road Community Corporation.
So Brick Road is a couple of local coffee shops here in the Phoenix Valley, and we also have a coffee roastery that we wholesale to companies across the state and country.
And you work closely with many small businesses. So from your perspective, how are small businesses doing right now, and how are you doing right now?
We're struggling. We're continuing to try to dig out of what feels like a roadblock put in front of us at every turn. A lot of my conversations with my other small businesses in the Valley are trying to figure out ways that we can lift each other up. How can we help work together in a more productive way so we can try to give ourselves a little bit more runway, because we're all feeling it.
So we're hearing about a lot of issues: inflation, access to capital, workforce issues. What's the most pressing challenge right now for you?
It's hard to pick one out of that bucket, but I mean, tariffs have been a huge impact to us. Obviously, coffee doesn't grow here, so we're still hoping that we will see some of that money refunded. But we've learned a lot in these last few weeks, including that there's no guarantee that I ever will, because we weren't the official importer of record. So that's another disadvantage small businesses have. But we're also feeling everything. We employ a lot of young folks, and we're dealing with several of our employees now asking for different ways to do their work schedule because gas is so expensive. So how do they lessen the amount of times they need to commute to work? So the challenges kind of come from every angle, whether it be the cost of goods, our employees and their needs, or even just how our customers are faring.
Are there resources out there that small business owners like yourself can reach for, or are there some that you're not able to take advantage of, or some that you might not be taking advantage of enough?
It's a complicated game. I'm very fortunate to be connected with Small Business for America's Future, which I feel is a lifeline in times like these because they do centralize a lot of those resources. I know what I know about tariffs and the refund process because of the newsletters I get from them and the communication from them. So there are resources out there. Small Business for America's Future is one example. Your local chambers often can be a lifeline. We have an organization here in Arizona, Local First Arizona, that really supports small businesses. So there are some out there, but at the end of the day, there's only so many hours in a day for a small business owner, and it takes time and effort to find those resources. And sometimes we're out here trying to just make a latte for our customers so we can get through the day.
So what have you had to do? Have you had to juggle things? Have you had to rethink a business plan? What kind of pivoting have you had to do in this environment?
It has been a really, really stressful journey. It goes all the way back to 2024 for us. We made the decision to expand to our second location in Mesa to build a production roastery like what you see behind me. And we made all of those forecasts, all of those budgets, all of the pro formas that we put to the bank well before any presidential election happened. Once the results became clear and we knew there was tariffs, the first thing we did was we were in the middle of construction, so we scaled back. We dialed back the equipment that we bought. We dialed back the scale of our remodel just to try to preserve capital. And then once that we knew tariffs were really going to become a thing, we pre-purchased our entire year's worth of cups just to try to avoid any type of tariffs. So we kind of emptied the coffers a little bit to give us some additional runway without the impacts. But now we're a year and a half, almost 2 years in, and we are just out of capital. That's the resources that small businesses don't have a lot of, which is cash to kind of keep going. And now I'm on a 2-week cycle. Every 2 weeks, can I make payroll?
What is it that you need to say, all right, we can survive through, if it's the war and the gas prices or, tariffs? What is it that you need, and how long do you think you could stay afloat realistically?
Stability is going to be the biggest thing. I mean, small business owners, we need to be able to plan. We need to be able to forecast. It's this constant worry of whether or not an order I'm placing is going to have some unexpected costs added onto it is really stressful. So stability, prioritizing small businesses over the Fortune 500 companies, making sure that there's actual language in there that, like for the tariff refunds, for example, that require it get paid down to the person that actually paid it, which would be us. And then as far as how long we think we can survive, every 2 weeks is a new evaluation for us. I mean, right now we have pulled every resource we could. My husband and I, we have put a second on our house. We are tapping into our retirement accounts. So we're pulling every asset that we have to try to give us as much time for this to stabilize as we can possibly get.
Despite the struggles, are there some trends that you're seeing that might give you hope about the future of your business and other small businesses who are in the same situation as you?
The silver lining of all of this, if you can say there is one, is the consumers are definitely starting to understand the importance of supporting their local businesses. The number of times we hear on a weekly basis that with everything going on, they wanted to go out of their way to come to a small or a local business. Those are the types of conversations that give me hope. It makes me believe that even once we do make it out of this, hopefully that trend and that behavior will continue and we will see a really strong resurgence of Main Streets.
Gabe Hagan, founder of Brick Road Community Corporation and your 2 coffee shops in Mesa, Arizona. Thank you for your time, your insight. We appreciate you sharing the struggles, and we hope for a bright future for you. And when all of us are in Mesa, we will come to your coffee shop. Thank you so much for sharing everything with us. We appreciate you. Good luck to you. You're watching Today as It Happened. Back in a flash.
watching Scripps News.
Welcome back to Today As It Happened. I'm Holly Furfer. All right, why don't we continue our walkthrough of the day's top headlines?
Day two, the second straight day, the United Arab Emirates says it was attacked again, and once again, its air defenses intercepting Iranian ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and drones. Yesterday, the UAE was hit for the first time since a ceasefire took hold last month. That escalation follows President Trump's launch of Operation Project Freedom, his effort to enforce commercial shipping back through the Strait of Hormuz. Scripps News senior and international correspondent Jason Bellini joins us now live from Washington, D.C. And Jason, it appears the U.S., absent a peace deal with Iran, is determined to reopen the strait. But how is that playing out so far?
Hi, Dale. The short answer is they're giving overwhelming force a try. The U.S. has been operating in the strait for days now, sinking Iranian boats, escorting commercial vessels, and running continuous air cover. But this morning, for the first time, Defense Secretary Hegseth gave it a name. Listen.
We have established a powerful red, white, and blue dome over the strait. American destroyers are on station, supported by hundreds of fighter jets, helicopters, drones, and surveillance aircraft, providing 24/7 overwatch for peaceful commercial vessels.
A red, white, and blue dome, as he called it. And already at least 2 U.S. commercial ships have transited safely. Hegseth says hundreds more are lining up. But here's the tension. Iran is still firing. The UAE is absorbing missiles for a second straight day. And the Pentagon is describing all of this as temporary, defensive, and separate from the broader war. What that means in practice is the U.S. is threading a very narrow needle. It's trying to pry open the world's most critical oil checkpoint without reigniting a conflict that it says is over. And one further thing to note that we're just now learning about is that Iran apparently is blocking GPS, or what's called GPS spoofing. What that means for the ships in the Strait of Hormuz is this GPS that they typically use to locate one another, to help themselves navigate, to avoid hitting one another, that's no longer available to them to be able to try to get through the strait safely if they attempt to do so, Dal.
Jason, you saw that social media post from Tehran. Is there still a diplomatic path out of this quagmire that we find ourselves in?
There's a path, but it's narrow, and it appears to be getting narrower. Iran submitted a 14-point peace proposal to Washington. That was just a few days ago, and that was relayed through Pakistan, which has been serving as the intermediary. The broad outlines of that were Iran wants the U.S. blockade lifted, sanctions removed against them, and American forces out of the region, and it wants to push the nuclear question to a later phase of talks. And that last part is actually a concession on their part. Iran is essentially saying, let's solve the war first, then we'll deal with the nukes later. And there's another problem. Trump has made Iran's nuclear capability a, quote, red line. And Iran's new supreme leader, this is Khamenei's son, Mojtaba, he's publicly vowed not to give up the country's nuclear missile program. So the military is forcing ships through the strait. The diplomats are still trying to figure out how to sit down, though.
It's primary day this Tuesday. The focus is on the Midwest, with voters in Indiana and Ohio going to the polls. Most eyes will be on the Hoosier state. President Trump is seeking to unseat Republican state senators who rebuffed a White House pressure campaign to redraw the congressional maps. Joining me now, Scripps News political director Andrew Rafferty. Raf, state houses now are the focus. What could we learn tonight about the president's hold on the Republican Party?
Yeah, pretty remarkable. You don't normally see a president go after sitting state senators like you do in Indiana tonight, but it is remarkable what that state has done, especially when you compare it to what nearly everyone else has done in the wake of these redistricting battles on both sides, Republicans and Democrats. Remember last year, Del, it was Republicans in Indianapolis that, despite a very intense pressure campaign that included a visit from J.D. Vance, multiple phone calls from President Trump, all in an attempt to redraw congressional maps like we have seen other states do in Indiana. The thinking was that they could get maybe squeeze 2 extra GOP seats out of that state, but that ultimately failed. It was a 31-19 vote in the state Senate, 21 Republicans, all 10 Democrats. So now we are fast forwarding to May, and 7 of those Republicans who voted against that redistricting effort are on the ballot. There's another one who is seeking to replace a retiring state senator who the Trump political machine has endorsed again. So it'll be really interesting tonight to see how many of those 7 ultimately survive. If it's 3, 4, both sides, no doubt, are going to be claiming victory no matter what. But it's really interesting because despite the president's low approval rating overall, he's still very popular in the Republican Party. And of course, if you're a Republican voter coming out to vote in a state Senate House race, chances are you're pretty conservative, you're pretty political. One other note, Del, just because we did mention Ohio, 2 races there that are going to be settled and I think are going to be really interesting going into the general. There's the governor's race, and that looks like it's going to be against Vivek Ramaswamy, a name that is well known to a lot of our viewers, ran for president in 2024. He's actually facing a tougher than perhaps we expected in what has become ruby red Ohio against a Democrat, Amy Acton. And then John Husted, who's a sitting senator who is replacing J.D. Vance. He is taking on Sherrod Brown. We expect that to be settled tonight. Sherrod Brown, of course, a former senator hoping to get his job back.
You know, it's fascinating. Your job used to just include Congress and the Senate and the governor's mansions. Now every state house contest that we're looking at. We're talking about Indiana right now, but all this month we're going to be seeing if the president's influence really does hold in these state house seats that are up for grabs.
Yeah, and May is really going to be a fascinating month because there are a number of races that Donald Trump has put his neck on the line in because of personal vendettas, maybe, you know, in some cases, certainly policy, but a number of races we are going to see play out this month. Of course, I was talking about today, May the 5th, where we're going to see those 7 races in Indiana, but I think we can put that list on the screen here. What else we're going to see this month? May 16th, Senator Bill Cassidy. Remember, he was one of the few Republican senators who voted to convict Donald Trump after January 6th. He's always been, long been in the president's crossfire since then. He is facing off against Julia Letlow, who has the president's endorsement as well as the governor there. Thomas Massey, who we've been talking a lot about in the context of the Epstein files. He has a tough Republican challenger on May 19th. That's Ed Gallerine, who has been endorsed by the president. And then perhaps the one we will be watching the closest, that Texas GOP Senate runoff. The president said he was going to endorse at one point Ken Paxton versus John Cornyn. Still has not done so, but we will obviously be watching that very closely that Tuesday after Memorial Day.
Thomas Massey has been in the president's sights now. Before I would say in the crosshairs, but you can't say that these days.
I guess I apologize if I said that.
You got it. Scripps News political director Andrew Rafferty. Raph, as always, we thank you.
We'll have more of today's big news coming up on Today as It Happened. For joining us again on Today as It Happened. I'm Holly Furfer. We have your daily look at the day's biggest stories in our wrap-up.
That is Secretary of State Marco Rubio entering the room, about to update reporters on the war with Iran and the efforts to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Let's go to the White House.
I'll have a brief remarks here, and then we'll get to your questions. As you know, over the weekend, the president announced this Project Freedom. And the goal of it is to, frankly, if you want to talk about it, it's to rescue like almost 23,000 civilians from 87 different countries that are trapped inside of the Gulf and left for dead in the Persian Gulf by this Iranian regime. You know, for more than 2 months now, these innocent sailors and commercial crew members have been stranded out at sea because Iran is conducting something that's not just criminal. It's criminal for sure, but it's desperate and destructive, this blockade of the Straits of Hormuz. Nations from around the world, the overwhelming majority of whom are not even engaged in any military hostilities, are now at risk not just of losing their cargo, but the lives of their own citizens because of this blockade. These ships, you know, you don't leave a ship out there for this long. You start running out of food. You start running out of potable water, essential supplies, and they're at the mercy of this piracy. And what it is, it's piracy. And not only that, but some of them have seen, you know, been open fire on and rained down senseless attacks on several civilian ships already. So frankly, the way to put it, these are innocent bystanders. These are countries that, and ships and so forth that have nothing to do with any of this and nonetheless are being caught in the middle of it and being held hostage merely because Iran could do that, just because of, just as the regime brutally slaughtered tens of thousands of their own citizens for the crime of peaceful protest, because they're unhappy with the quality of life or the lack of quality of life in Iran today. And so they're sitting ducks. They're isolated, they're starving, they're vulnerable, and at least 10 sailors have already died as a result of the civilian sailors. So already many nations privately and some publicly have asked the United States to help free their ships and to restore freedom of navigation in the Straits of Hormuz and this critical artery of global trade. And so President Trump, as he always does, stepped up and answered the calls for their help. And he's directed the United States military to guide these stranded ships to safety, to provide a protective bubble under which they can operate and move product and get themselves out of there and out of harm's way. And this is the first step towards reopening the strait and bringing this regime's last-ditch act of economic arson, bringing that to a close. We're doing it not only because we were asked, but because we're the only ones who can. Only we have the power to sort of take the steps that we've taken now. Under this president, under President Trump, the United States will help our friends. We're going to stand up to rogue regimes like the one in Tehran, and we're going to be unashamed to use our power and our abilities to project military power in the service of our national interest above all else. Now, what's really important for you to report and for everyone to understand is this is not an offensive operation. This is a defensive operation. And what that means is very simple. There's no shooting unless we're shot at first. Okay? We're not attacking them. But if they're attacking us or they're attacking a ship, you need to respond to that. You're not going to let some fast boat come up on a ship and shoot it up. We're going to respond to it, and we've been successful at it. I don't know what the exact number is, but I know a number of those fast boats have now been targeted, and will continue to be if they pose a threat to our forces. We'll shoot down drones, we'll shoot down missiles, but it's defensive in nature. This is defensive. So if you hear stories about attacks and launching of firing back and forth, it's not back and forth. We are only responding if attacked first. This is a defensive operation, and that's what's occurring here. Just about the importance of the Straits for a moment. This is approximately a quarter of the world's oil trade, along with significant volumes of fuel and fertilizer that operate through the Straits of Hormuz. The Iranian regime cannot be allowed to dictate who uses this vital waterway. I don't think this is also being reported enough. Maybe you are reporting. I don't read everyone. I don't know many damn outlets here. I don't know who you all are, but I mean, I know who some of you are, but I don't know all of you are. But I will say this about it. This is an international waterway. Okay, this is an international waterway. And international law is very clear, and I love it because everybody always talks about international law, and this international law on this is very clear. International waterways, no country can control them. There is no international law that allows you to say, I'm going to put mines in an international body of water, and I'm going to blow up ships that don't listen to us and try to go through. That's what Iran is doing. This is a criminal act.
Thanks for spending part of your evening here with us on Today As It Happened. I'm Holly Furfer. Have a golden Tuesday night.